Want to have your SEO questions answered live? At SEOtraining.com, we offer our members monthly Q&A calls with the father of SEO himself, Bruce Clay. In this series, we are going to share some of the SEO questions that have come in from our members during our live recordings. So if you want to participate and ask your questions to Bruce in our next call, sign up to become a member today at SEOtraining.com. Enjoy.
Would you say SEO is more of a science or an art form?
Yes. So there's actually more to it than just those two, but the science component is knowing what to do, having had the research and knowledge and experience to repeatedly demonstrate some sort of cause and effect, right? If it is a science, then I can apply rules and I can understand how to cause something to happen. And to a great extent, SEO certainly includes all that. But with Google changing the algorithm 8 times a day and your competition leapfrogging you, there are going to be things that you will have seen for the very, very first time. And I think that's where the art comes in, because you're coloring outside of the lines. You're not in the box anymore. This is not a rule-based system if the rules are constantly changing. So is that art? Or is that creativity, which is more art than science? Perhaps the ability to run experiments is certainly science, but the ability to determine that you need an experiment might be art. I think that it's really part of everything. The way I kind of described it in the past is SEO is like juggling Rubik's cubes, trying to solve them in midair while the colors are changing. There's a skill to that. There's a science to that, but there's a whole heck of a lot of creativity to that. And so the answer to the question is yes, it is science. Yes, it is art. And yes, if you only have one part of that, you're going to fail. You have to really be good at the pieces. You go to companies, and this is a pet peeve of mine. You go to a company and they'll hire people right out of school and they'll bring them in and they'll teach them the rules and they'll say, this is our cookbook and this is how you do titles and this is how big a page should be and this is the rule. And they'll teach these people right out of school to do that. But they're not teaching them how to think outside of the box or how to recognize an anomaly and to be able to determine what it really is doing and how to cope with it. They are only good when they're dealing with things in the box, but they're no good outside of the box. So that's where expertise comes in. The people kind of go through the curve of, I know the rules, I've learned the rules, I've seen all these rule stretching things, I've stretched my rules. Now I'm able to see things as they happen before my competition, and I can affect change based upon the fact that this isn't in the rules. But I can see it and I can figure it out and I can research it and I can do it. And that is where expertise comes in. And the concept of you're an expert at 10,000 hours. In SEO, it's 20,000 hours. There are anomalies. There are people at 5 years that have been in absolutely the right environment for all 5 years. But most people doing SEO, they've learned how to do it, and that's what they do. And the art part is where you develop your expertise. That is where you differentiate yourself from just the intern SEO that's learning and applying rules. And I think that's critical to being an SEO.
Right. I really like that question a lot because it's somewhat of like a philosophical question. And I'm really big on philosophy. So I was kind of like, oh, I'm really curious to see how Bruce answers this. Just to add on to that, you would say probably content is purely the art form, right? Like all the content you're writing, because that has very little with the scientific method. I mean, maybe a little bit of a nuance there with trying to update your content to better fit the algorithm, but you probably concur that content is where the art form comes in, and then the actual like linking and following the webmaster guidelines, like that's the science behind what you have to do. But I don't know, am I way off on that, Bruce, or do you agree with that?
To a great extent, I agree. I'm going to describe our content project so that it puts it in a little bit better context for everybody.
Mhm.
When we do a project, obviously, and anybody here that has a blogger or, I get about 20 emails a day offering to get me well ranked on a DA 50 when Google says DA doesn't count.
Mhm.
They sell what they sell. But I get a lot of bloggers and writers and people who want to write. And they'll even say, I'm going to write a blog post and post it on your website without any idea what my website's about. They're just happy to post it on my website. The thing about it is you do need to have an idea what the keywords are. You do need to know how much ambiguity there is, and you need to know what you've already written about to figure out what you're going to write about now so you don't contradict it, which, by the way, has happened a lot. You hire a writer to write about something you've written about and they contradict you. Boy, that's messed up. And then you go through the process of, I'm going to write it. Now, how much do I write? Well, Google's rewarding 800 word, easy, give them the answer, thank you very much. You don't write 5,000 words. Google's looking for short, concise, deliberate, to the point answers. Well, sometimes you need to know that. Okay, now you write it, but somewhere in there, there's going to be a topic editor that says, I'm the subject matter expert and that's wrong. Then you're going to be having an editor, which may be the same person, perhaps, that says, grammatically, this is really bad. Your sentence structure is wrong. You can't have 30-word sentences. You got to fix the grammar. And then you have to do the SEO, and the SEO is on page. You get all of that done. Then it can go on your website. Where people drop the ball is they don't have the pages on their website linked to the new content. The new content is somewhat amputated and it links to the website. It might be a buried link somewhere through a hierarchy in your blog, but if you don't tie it into the topics of your website, it's going to be in left field. It's going to be just not appreciated by anybody. You can promote it socially, but if you don't connect it, you've missed the game. So you have keyword research, you have writing. The writing takes the science of what's Google rewarding? How big do I have to make this critter? Then you have to write it, which is really the art component. Then you have to editorialize it to make sure it's an authoritative expertise type document. Then you have to SEO it to make sure that the search engine isn't going to get angry at it or ignore it. And then you still have to integrate it into your website, and then you can promote it socially. Is that just art? Well, the writing component might be predominantly art, but the content creation envelope is really all the things I mentioned. Sometimes science, sometimes art.
Mhm.
And people often forget that when they think about creating content or writing, the writing is just a part of creating content. And sometimes they think they're the same. And if somebody wrote something, I'll just post it without any of the rest of the science being applied. So you got to be careful.
If you want to join our next Q&A call, be sure to sign up to become a member at SEOtraining.com so you can ask your questions live. As a member, you'll also have access to dozens of hours of training videos as well as our SEO tools and ebooks. SEO is always evolving and you need a way to stay up to date. So if you want to raise your SEO to the next level, be sure to sign up today at SEOtraining.com. Thanks for watching.